Let us just look at what the typical system consists in a university. They'll be having a HR system, financial system, social activity, library, publishing, archiving. So these are some of the things. So what this one we call, see, when we start in the year practice, what first of all we must need to do is we need to understand the current landscape. This one we call as the baseline. So the baseline can be, I'm showing the applications. Actually, what you must get into the mind is the business uses the application, so they got this kind of capability. So on this basis, we need to see what kind of business capability is required in the target architecture. So let us first understand what is the scope of the objective of phase B. Okay, before I go, do you guys got the differentiation between vision, goal, objective? You have that concept in your mind? Have you come across in your when we are working? Just send me a message. That's all. Great. Yeah, I got it. One answer. No problem. Because one of the key thing, especially strategy word and objective is very interpreted. So always remember, every company has got a vision. It's a very high level. To realize the vision, you have some kind of a mission, what the company actually does. Example, in our case, the mission is to provide a quality education service for a user. He can be working anywhere remotely. He can be having the same kind of a, what is that, delivery of the courses. Then the strategy we're going to form is like how to achieve this. Strategy means, again, strategy is example, when COVID occurred, immediately companies went with some kind of objective where the staff is able to work from the home. That's when we call it the tactics. It's a short term just to make the things happen. But a long term, we need to have like a proper network connectivity to the home of the staff as well as the student. Then we need to have a proper monitoring of the environment because there'll be some kind of sensitive information where the staff or the student can be working from his home, and there can be a concern of security breach or risk. So that is a long-term strategy. So how to realize that? So for the strategy, we come across one step below. We put a goal. So goal is nothing but a qualitative. So what can be done? Objective is at the end of the this cycle or this milestone, this must be achieved. So get into the mind. So said that what is the business objective? We look from that perspective. See, as you can see from here, please look at this ADM phase. What TOGAF says is, as I told you, an enterprise architecture cuts across the entire enterprise. As long as the enterprise exists, EA practice exists. So if you have a project will be so suppose I got a product will be having n number of projects below that. At the same time, a company can be having n number of products. So to achieve all this, we are following the architecture development method, or we got something called the architecture life cycle. The architecture life cycle coexists with the company itself, realizing the company's vision and mission. So said that for each phase of the ADM, look at each phase of the ADM, you need to define the vision and objective for each phase. That's a very critical thing. When you are the developer or when you are an architect as an application or technology or data, you'll be not looking into that aspect. But when you work as an enterprise architect and when you're defining a strategy to realize organizational wide, your mindset must be for every phase, you'll be defining the vision, the mission, how to achieve, what is the end result. At the same time, how it will be done, like what are the goals and objectives. Okay, so said that, let us look back what we want to achieve in B phase. In the B phase, one of the main thing is what we want to achieve is the enterprise needs to operate like achieve the business goals. That is the key thing. So the business goals in our case is, let us discuss the case study. We want to have a remote learning environment similar to a classroom kind of an environment. Okay. Again, strategic drivers here, we take in our strategic drivers is in the case study it is telling. The strategy is because of COVID, remote learning has become a de facto, it must be done. That is the drivers. The vision, we came across few of the aspects which we define the capabilities. Then afterwards, we identify the roadmap, means what are the components to realize. To realize this one, then we need to understand what is the baseline. So this is the baseline. So baseline means, see again, see here actually I showed you the systems that's all, but you must try to abstract what is the business capability. So here we can have the business capability at this moment. We can think from business perspective. Like a students will come on board if you want to enroll. Physically, you may enroll anywhere, any part of the world, but you must come to the university to identify himself and to get the access cards and to get admission to the university. So all this will come. So let us look at what is the target capability. If the business model changes, so in the future, if I'm going to do remote learning, so my student can be in Sydney, the student can be any part of the world. So how to authenticate and authorize the student? How to identify the student? He is the genuine one. Somebody is not imitating him. Are you guys with me? So these are the things we must consider. So for this, what kind of systems we need? What kind of business capability? This is the capabilities you must look. We don't look at the systems at this moment. So if I'm able to enroll a student from a remote place, how to validate him? He is the student. He has got the required qualification, and he is the one. Okay, so that is one aspect. Then afterwards, to achieve the target, so then we must try to realize to authenticate the user. Then we need this kind of documentation if it is needed, or might be you need to get some 3-4 references, or might be from his previous college we need to get is all his information. Might be his photographs in the last 2-3 years, how he was looking. So all these aspects need to be considered to authenticate the user and to validate he is the actual one. So you got the concept now. I got the baseline, the current practice, what we are following, and the target practice, what we want to achieve. So what is the gap? The gap is identifying a student. That's one gap. Second gap. The second gap is how to identify the student, the process what we are following to identify the student. So what kind of new process we need to have. And the third one is like example, the student at this moment is taking the exam on the on-prem, on the university campus. Now he's going to take the exams from its remote place. It can be home, it can be anywhere. So how to validate? He is qualifying like by the minimum attendance of 60% or 80%, what is required by the university, and he is submitting his assignment, and it is done by him, not by anyone else. So how to authorize and authenticate that? So you may tell, okay, when the student starts using his system, how to ensure he is the one typing the message, because nowadays, I know many students outsource their work to someone else. This I come across myself, people outsourcing. You guys are with me? So I wanted to make interactive, but I'm not seeing any much messages coming across. Okay. Okay, that's great. Oh, I very good. Somebody has come with biometric. That's very good. Biometric is one thing that I missed it out. So biometric is one of the main thing to say that how we can able to look at the person. He is the actual one. Okay. Okay, guys, that's very interesting now. Biometric, I missed it out. That's very good. See, you'll be surprised, even your facial can be recognized. He is the actual person, and if he tries to imitate someone, put someone there, you can able to recognize. The facial recognition is, of course, in your phone is that the same type systems are there with that kind of a capability. Okay, so now we know what is the objective. Let us look at what are the aspects, how to approach this one. So generally, phase B will kick off only when from phase A. The phase A means we got statement of architectural work. That's a project. In the project, they got a high level. Again, I want to highlight here. By the time you come from phase A to phase B, sometimes it can be few weeks. Sometimes it can be few months. What is the reason? I want audience to answer for this. Sometimes from phase A to phase B, it can be weeks. Sometimes it can be months. Any reason? Tell me. What do you feel? Yes, approval time, very good thing. Funding, second, that's very good thing. Any other thing? Then scope of the project, that's very good thing. So again, enterprise architecture does not work in isolation, because enterprise architecture works in coordination with other projects also. Sometimes for your project to kick off, some other project output can be input for you. So you may need to wait for them. And sometimes what happens is, especially student management systems and course systems, we cannot touch it especially in the peak times. So you must wait for the timeline when it's off peak. So there will be so many other constraints. Again, funding is the key thing, especially it is less than like 100, 200K, it's very easy. But especially when you go for a major change, what's happening now, at least it comes in like few $1,000,000. Then what happens is there's approval time, and there'll be some kind of a this one like a POC to see if really is viable, is working. So then it may take some time. Okay. So said that, always it does not, the moment you got statement of architectural work, immediately B will not kick off. Phase B, there will be some lead time, some lean time. Okay. Lag time, sorry, not lag time is the right word. Okay, then general approach means we got a statement of architectural work, this will kick off. That's one thing. We're going to develop the baseline description. Okay, baseline description, again, it varies, guys. So example, some companies, I just want to give an example. In India, we had this Y2K bug. None of the Indian companies were not bothered at all. But US spent millions and billions of dollars for the Y2K bug from 2 bytes to 4 bytes. So I was talking to one of the customers. What they told is, for us, nothing problem at all because we don't have any systems at that time in 2000. So it did not matter for us. So what the message I want to say is, when you make the baseline, you must try to see, is there any kind of the business requirement it is essential for us to capture. Is not essential, is not no need. So baselines become zero. So sometimes some new capabilities you want to go. So baseline is not necessary. So baseline is subjective depending on case to case basis. Then apply the business capabilities. So then we must try to see what are the business capabilities currently the company is having and what is the expectation. So you must try to identify the capabilities. Then value streams. See, this is where the value stream concepts come into play. So the value stream concept, let us take an example now. You guys, do you have an idea like how much a university will spend to onboard a student? Anyone got an idea? How much a university will spend to onboard a student? See, it varies from college to college. Some universities which they don't have a good reputation, they may spend like a few $1,000s. And some universities which has got a very good reputation, they might not spend that much of money at all. So the reason what I want to say here is, depending on the university type to type, the cost may vary. So said that, you must look at the value stream. So in the value stream, some universities, they got agents in different countries to get students to the universities in Australia. Okay. Then the organizational map. See, when you do the value stream, two things will come into play. In the value stream, we got different verticals. Might be onboarding the student, might be how the student is qualified for his next, credentials, going for the next, whichever the subject is taking. Or might be there's some value stream like how the student is sent for some overseas assignments, overseas exchange program. So the different value stream. So you're going to look at each value stream to see what is the value you're going to get. So just I want to highlight you here. Many universities offer exchange program. So what one of the article I was reading, the more they go to exchange program, students are attracted for that kind of an university. Okay. Then when you apply the value stream, what happens is you can able to look at the value stream, what is the process they're following and who has been assigned for that. Then when you come below that, then you look at the organizational map. You cannot solve some different problem with the same method what you're following. You must change the method to solve a different problem. So said that you must try to see the organizational map currently what the work is getting executed, what need to be remapped. Then afterwards, there's some modeling techniques. There are many modeling techniques, but this is what the open group has given. The activity models. So currently, what is the activity they're performing to do the task? Some use case model. When you take the use case model, it comes organization wide. So one use case, or might be like remote learning is one use case. Or one use case can be like how to onboard a student. One use case can be there. Or one use case can be like how to qualify a student taking his exams remotely. So there can be use cases which comes enterprise wide. Then you got a class model. Class model generally we call a static model. So from a static model means what is the current state, like what is the data which is there. So it comes from that perspective. So then let us look at what steps we need to follow. So again, you must try to get into the mind. As I told you in the last class, B, C, D, the steps are the same. I'll tell you the steps. I'll tell you what are the difference also. Select reference models, viewpoints, and tools. See, the moment I say reference models, see here what we're talking is we're talking about business architecture. The business architecture, one of the key role of an enterprise architect is to reuse the assets. So reference model, what it says is there might be some reference models in the industry where you can able to make as a reference to see how to onboard a student. See again, if you see especially remote learning as well as remote taking the exam, it is there from last almost 7 to 10 years. You got when you take a lot of exams, you can take from your home. So said that. So what we need to follow? What are the practices they're following? So especially when you take a PMP exam, your TOGAF, your Prince2, you can take from your home. So said that what are the because even that exams are internationally recognized. So what are the standards that they're following? So what need to be done? So I recently took one Prometric exam. So what they told is like my TV was on. So the person called me. I got a phone call. He told something is background message is coming. Can you switch off your TV or radio, whatever you're having? So they told you want pin drop silence, and on the camera they told like I must be only watching the computer. So like there are some reference model you can able to refer it. Again, viewpoints. When you take the viewpoints, when we want to have the aspiration capability, the different stakeholders involved. A reference model is holistic. We take the viewpoint what is required for that. Tools. What tools do you think we need to refer here? Audience, question for you. What tool do you think we must refer here? See, the tools can be modeling, an Archimate modeling tool you can use. You can use a business process model. You can use some kind of a Six Sigma. It can be anything. So tools can be generic. There's no specific which one to follow. But as an enterprise architect, I recommend at this level to be Archimate perspective because all the audience can be able to communicate. Then develop the baseline business architecture description. Again, baseline is subjective. If it is something you are going for a new kind of a requirement, baseline is not so necessary. For example, in our case, where the baseline is necessary because we are trying to see what is the current practice a student is on getting onboarded, the current practice of the exam, we're looking at that. Then the target business architecture is going to see what is the target capability we need. So the target is again how to see that the students is able to take the exam remotely. What is the target architect business capability? Okay. Then we come out with the gap analysis. So this is the gap. Then we're going to define the components. What is the components required? Like might be for onboarding, these are the steps we need to follow. This is the process we need to follow. Okay, you must get the message in your mind. Roadmap components means it's not like physically there's some physical component. It can be an identified business process. It can be an identified business function. It can be an identified event. It can be anything. Then again, what happens is one of the key thing always EA practices fail. We don't look at the impact for other projects because EA does not work in isolation. EA cuts across the whole enterprise. The key objective of EA is one is reuse the assets at the same time work across the enterprise. So to rationalize a business process, to eliminate duplicate business processes or applications, and to get away from silo data. So said that, then you need to work together with other business units or other projects in hand. So you must look at their projects, the landscape of an architecture across the enterprise. How does your input output will be affecting them? So what is the output be input for you? What output of yours can be input for them? So you must look at their impact. Then afterwards, looking at the impact, you must go back to the stakeholder. Okay, now I'll connect back for you. See, the stakeholder, what we are referring here is, we came across a stakeholder in phase A. Phase A is top level executives who define the vision in a top level. When you're talking to B phase, we're talking to the stakeholders who are in the business domain, who are the actual business users or business owners. So said that these are the stakeholders, we took their reference model. So the stakeholders, in whether we tell implicitly, explicitly, the stakeholders are here. We took the reference model based on to meet the stakeholders' viewpoints and then for the same stakeholders, we'll go back and get the review. Guys, please remember, sometimes many projects can be canned before even it can be started. Because generally, EA practice will not bring happiness in a company. EA practice will bring a lot of what I can obstruction. One good example I can give you is putting the the tram in the CBD. Yes, it gave a lot of advantage, but 2 years the CBD was completely clogged. Similarly, in a EA practice is the same thing. When you bring in a new kind of a what is that capability, some of the people need to relearn what they're learning, and some of they may lose their job, and some of them need to parallelly work in two different systems. So I said that your stakeholders are a very key important thing. You must go back to them and get their review. So once they get the review, then you're going to finalize the business architecture. Then we're going to create the architect definition document. Just to highlight, in P phase, we define request for architectural work. In A phase, we request statement of architectural work. And in B phase, we're creating architecture definition document. Okay, question for your audience. Is it a final document or does it continue? Is it a final document? Just think in a normal way. Based on the name, is it a final document? No, that's good. I got a question. That's very good. Okay, guys, this is a very good answer I got from Megan. This is going to exist as long as you complete your project, because this is a document is a reference for you. This is the one we're going to identify the functionality, everything. So at this phase, this is we're defining from business perspective. The next phase, we're defining from the application perspective, data perspective, technology perspective. So this document continuously gets updated and it gets finalized only in phase F. So till the phase F, it will be continuously getting updated. Okay, good. You are there. Okay, next. Once you come across, then what we're going to do is we finish the B phase. Then what is the next A phase, the C phase? C phase is nothing but information system architecture. As I told you earlier, TOGAF came in 1995. So at that time, the applications are bundled with application data, everything. You get like a macro application. You buy one system, it has got everything within it. They don't have the concept of multi-tier architecture at that time. So that's the reason it is bundled with two core phases. One is application and one is technology. Again, here the objective is they want to define the information system architecture. Again, they need to identify that baseline and the target. Again, here is the combination of application and data. You guys all okay till now? Okay. So again, what TOGAF says is, see, there's no hard and fast rule how to develop this one. When you come with the enterprise architecture practice, especially for information system architecture, it can be depending on who is driving. See, I have come in my experience, somebody who has come from data perspective, they try to drive from the data, from data perspective. Or somebody who has come from object-oriented Java programming, they come from the top down. They define the domain objects across the enterprise. From there, they'll drive. And again, some school of thought, they say you can do parallelly both. There's no hard and fast rule. It's the same. Okay, I got a question here. Sorry, missed the last slide, phase G. Can you re-display the time? Thanks. Okay. Oh, sorry. I'm going very fast. Oh, sorry, guys. Oh, this is a slide? Mike, this is a slide? Okay. In this slide, what we are trying to say is, because information system consists of two phases within that. So that's the reason, like, so this is phase B. Okay. So phase B we finished. Then, oh, great. Okay. Mike is telling that they're teaching the same thing in MBA course. To be honest, what they say is sometimes TOGAF is something like an MBA. It gives you, because it connects business to technology, and that's the beauty of architecture. Because architecture all this time it was interpreted. Okay, then coming back to phase C, we finished this slide. Then again, there's no hard and fast rule. It can be data driven or application driven or combination of both. So it depends on your company culture and who is driving the show. There's no hard and fast rules. Okay. So again, like application, this is where we have, okay, data-driven approach. This is where when you were considering the major ERP systems, sorry, some of Speckbeck is the one guy in early 1970s. So he came with the concept of data-driven. And again, you have got one more thing called application-driven. This is where it was driven by like ERP systems. So ERP and all, you buy a suite of application, and from the application, you're going to determine what is needed for what purpose. So applications coming bundled with a database and all. So you had no say, especially like Siebel or CRMs or like the financial applications. So application driven. Then sometimes a combination, especially nowadays, you got multi-tier architecture. I got a question here. I have read the data-driven approach is better than Zachman framework, such as data architecture should be defined before application architecture. So I got a question here. The question is, Began is asking is, the data-driven approach is better. I think Zachman framework suggests data architecture should be defined before application architecture. There's no hard and fast rule, Megan, because either one can be defined. It all depends on your perspective. Sometimes if you got a legacy application, sometimes it's not possible to understand exactly where the data is coming. At the same time, some of the legacy applications, we're going to replace it sooner or later. So that time we don't go and much look at data architecture. We look from the application perspective. Because sometimes what happens is data intensive systems, then yes, we may look into that. But irrespective, from my experience, what we do is we generally don't look at, we always come from a top-down approach. From the top-down approach, we exactly look, hey, what is the business objective? It's fine. What is the business, to support the business, what is the capability the business is having? For the business capability, what are the kind of application is needed or what is existing? And for that, what is the kind of data it is there? We're going to map it back. So that will be much more better. Next week, I'll show one of the example. Today, I could not put the slide. Next week, I'll show you. So definitely my view is always come from the top-down approach, because bottom-up approach never works. Few reasons for that. So one of the main reason is generally many companies don't have the application catalog at all. So on that basis, what happens is we'll be just banging our head to a dead end. Coming from a top-down approach, as long as the business wants this, if it is there, yes. If it's not there, we can able to rebuild it or procure it. Okay, I hope I answered the question. Then, yeah, phase C is nothing but the combination of this one, information and technology. Sorry, guys, I made a mistake. Good, somebody pointed me out. Sorry, this is my mistake. It's a pure typo error. Okay, that time, okay, we came, yeah. See, this is the problem with cut and paste and doing the things. So I did not update the slide with the actual slide name. Okay, then coming back to data architecture. So one of the key things, the moment data architecture comes into your mind, first of all, the thing is any company, they got X number of data defined in a company. How to manage that data? So that is the key thing comes into your mind. So you must look from that perspective. And next, once you know how to manage the data, then the problem comes with what is the migration path. Because as we discussing in the last 3 classes, what's happening is companies have procured applications. Applications were bundled with data plus the application software stack together. So now we want to isolate it. I take a simple example. If you take a student management system, the student management system will be having its own inbuilt database, everything fine. Again, if you go for a LMS system, LMS is also having its own students database, everything. So some companies, when they especially bought, because they came a different timeline, they're able to isolate. But sometimes some companies, what they did is whatever existing, they just mapped it, they started using it. But moving forward, we need to have the source of truth from single source of truth. So to achieve that one, we need to consolidate. And again, sometimes what happens is at one central place, example, when a student gets on board in a university, his name is created. Then afterwards, depending on the which all the how is life cycle of a student. So based on that, in different systems, additional attributes will be added. That is the good concept to go. But many companies don't have that one. What they do is they create one more name there, one more user ID, one more user ID. And then there will be one mapping table to connect the user with all the other systems where it's connected. So that is one way companies were doing before. But now they're trying to go with one user ID, and that is being connected back as an attribute to the other systems. So you must try to see what is the migration path moving forward. Then one of the key thing is data governance. With many companies, like still they call as data custodian and all, but many data steward. This all in IBM kind of a companies where they got these processes. But many SME companies, even government agencies, they don't have this kind of a concept. Okay, I got a question here. Mechanism should not be defined application requirements based on data requirements. Most of the time, what I have seen is business procure applications without knowing what data they need or what they want to process. It's a very good question, Megan. Guys, just hear this. Should we define application requirements based on data requirements? Most of the time, what I have seen in business procure applications without knowing what data they need or what want to process. See, this is the reason we need enterprise architecture. When we have enterprise architecture, if we today what we discussed, we identified these are the capabilities we want to have. The students need to be monitored. All we defined in a very high level. But when we come into business architecture, we are talking only the business capability. Again, when you're talking about the application, the data, we're just talking about the data, the existing data, the future data. When we come to the application, I'll be talking only about the applications. So what we're going to do is in the top-down approach, we look from the business capability. From the business capability, we can map either data perspective, application does not make difference. Then afterwards, we're going to map what technology is required. So said that, the message what I want to give here is, it must be top-down driven. So when we come in that aspect, this thing is not a problem. See, as I told you earlier, without a EA practice, what happens? The business, one of the key stakeholder or some of the business units, they feel a good system is that they just procure it. And that system will not fit into the enterprise. So then afterwards, they retrofit and do something. So that's why, EA practice must be set first. And from there, any procurement or any kind of a new requirement must be funneled to the EA practice. Okay, let us look at the phase C. So as I told you, there's no difference at all here. Can anyone say? I'll show you what is the difference. What has changed here. Select a reference model is the same thing what we saw in phase B. Here also you're going to select a reference model. Again, the reference model here specific to a data perspective. Again, data perspective, there's a lot of reference model from different companies. We look at the data reference model. But unfortunately, for health education, there's no much of reference models, what I have come across. Health, there's a reference model. For banking, there's a reference model. Insurance, there's a reference model. For education, still it's evolving. There's no much reference model in the education industry. In fact, I wanted to develop a reference model once I thought about it, but I did not complete it. Then again, we take the viewpoints. Please, guys, remember here. When I say the reference model, these reference models are first selected by the architect to meet the requirements of the viewpoints of here. Again, business. When you talk about data architecture, who are your audience? So data architecture means might be the data, like example, like who is managing the data or who is in charge of the data perspective. If there's a data custodian or data, what is that? Evangelist. So you're going to take their requirements. So from their viewpoint, you see what kind of reference model is needed. So nowadays, what they call is many companies got a chief data officer or chief digital officer. So you must try to look at from their perspective, hey, what is the industry reference model? What can we refer? And then we need to look at the tools. Again, here, the tools is specific to defining the data models. Okay, please get into the mind. See, Archimate gives you only the high level of data. But to do a proper modeling, you need to have a proper data modeling tool. Again, data modeling tool, there's so many tools in the market. Then again, we're going to define the baseline data architecture and target data architecture. We define the baseline. Again, the baseline depends. If something, example in a student, our case, yes, we need to understand the baseline and the target, because once a student is working from remotely from his home, there's additional data need to be captured. If a student is sitting in the classroom and we're not worried at all, he comes to a classroom, we just look at his this one student card, and he has come to the exam. That's the only thing. He writes the exam, he gives back to us. That's what the current practice. So the data, there is nothing. It's a might be some X number of fields. But the moment he's working from the home, we're taking exam from the home, then we need to capture his eyeballs. We need to capture what are the applications he's going, what are the activities he's doing. So additional data is generated. Okay. So for that, we make a gap analysis. Okay. Then we define what kind of components is required. So components means, like example, like the data captured from his system, the data captured from his body physical movement, like eyeball, whatever the neck movement, everything will be captured. The spatial will be captured. So that are the different data components we're going to consider. Then again, might be similar kind of activity can be done in some other projects. We try to relook at the landscape. Again, here the landscape we're talking in terms of data perspective. Then form a stakeholder review. Again, here the stakeholder review is not the stakeholder whom you identify in phase A. Here the stakeholder is only from data perspective point of view. See, one of the key thing, TOGAF is such a vast kind of a system. It's not possible to involve everyone. We only at that particular context, who is involved, we'll only take from their perspective. Okay. Then final data architecture. Then we're going to see, actually, again, TOGAF is done long back. So again, create or update. Okay. If it's a new document, we're going to create it. If it is not it's a old document, you're going to update it. So sometimes some companies, what they do is, one of the problem with EA practice, many companies don't come from the business perspective. If you can see in the industry, almost 80% of the data migration projects fails, because what happens is they don't look from the business perspective. They just take from the data angle. Again, the data, they cannot be able to connect back to the business. They think doing all the data, the business analysis, connecting back the data is time consuming. That's where they fail. So moving forward, any kind of migration or any kind of new initiatives, especially nowadays with this virtual databases like HANA, like Denado, or even like what is that Snowflake kind of a database. What is that? Data warehouses. It's very simple. So I was working in a project in Westpac. So that time we had Teradata. Teradata, minimum you must talk $5 million. So now if you go to Snowflake and all, at a fraction of the cost, you can able to start and using this Redshift from AWS. You got a lot of systems now. But only thing is, when you go for that one, you must really come out with, from the business perspective, how it is getting connected. Many of the HANA projects failed because it's not connected back to the business. Okay, see now I'll tell you what is the difference. See, the select reference model is the same for, it can be for business, application, data, technology is the same. From business, we're going to select the reference model from the business. Again, the viewpoints, we're going to look from the angle of the business owner, application owner, technology owner, or data owner. Tools specific to business, application, data, or technology. So all of you, you're with me, I believe. Next, develop the baseline. Till the baseline is the same. If you're in B phase, I develop the baseline for the business architecture. If I am in application, data, technology. Okay, then develop the target. So if I am in the business, I'll be developing the business or data. If I'm in the data phase, or if I'm in technology, I'll be developing the technology. Gap analysis is the same. Again, if you're doing for business, it will be business gap analysis, or application gap analysis, data or technology. Again, roadmap components depends on which phase you are. So it's a generic word. Again, impact of the architectural landscape. The architectural landscape, olden days says it was all like product based. Oh, they're implementing a ERP. They're implementing a, what is that, HR system. But nowadays it is not like that. Irrespective, nowadays what irrespective of what's happening is, they'll be having everything is layered applications. You can able to say what integration projects is happening, or how your data you're going to consume from there, or how you're going to pass across your data or business process application. Because in integration now we've got integration from all the layers. It can be application, data, or technology. And especially with technology as a software, everything is it's a software. Integration is a must now. So then Again, when you look at the impact, you look at the impact based on the phase. Again, stakeholder review, same thing. Your stakeholders varies depending on the which phase you are. So you're going to look at the stakeholder. Then you're going to finalize the phase which you are. It can be a business, application, data, or technology. Again, the documentation is the same. The same one architect definition document will be defined. Someone may ask, hey, see, there's a mega project. We might be having hundreds, thousands of people working across the world. Yes, that's what happens is still we'll be having one document, but one document will be having layers. One layer in the architect definition document, one will be specific to application, one specific to data, one specific to technology. At the same time, everything must be connected. If it's not connected, what happens again, we'll be creating silo documents and silo applications. So that is the reason we need a modeling practice. At the same time, a tool is required. This is the same thing for the application phase. We're going to develop the target application. Again, that to enable the business architecture. Please, you must get this point into your mind. The first application to be defined, the first architecture to be defined in any company must be business architecture. But many companies, they're not doing that one. That is the main reason, 85% of the projects are still failing, and it will be much more, the failure rate will be higher. Because especially after COVID, every company wants to just jump in and able to get some kind of a remote working capability. And especially how they get the remote working capability, they want to, whatever on-prem, they want to put into the cloud. So once they go, is something, you take your as-is applications, it's done for vertical scaling, put for horizontal scaling, it does not work. And today, just one of my ex-colleague called. She got stuck. She was doing some experiment on AWS, and suddenly she started some process. And 5 days, she got 4,000 bills. then she told what to do. I did not know I was doing something. So then I was telling her this called the AWS. See, one of the problem with technology, especially with cloud, it's unless you properly manage it, it can become a disaster. Again, this one I not go through it, the same concept. Only thing is, instead of data, we're looking at the application. Okay. Okay, I got a question from here. Is it DHS mainframe? See, actually, mainframe, some companies are still using, especially the core banking applications. Still, IBM is selling their, I forgot the 370 something, they got that mainframe, still they're selling. But eventually, I think because of COVID, all will get phased out. Not so soon, might be at least next 10 to 20 years. It takes the time. Okay, then this is the same thing, there's no much changes, but only thing is I put in here, the main reason is to show you that the target technology architecture you're going to develop, it be technology specific. Let me discuss about now technology. See, for our use case, till we know what we discussed about the applications. These are the applications. Let me go back to my slide. See, these are the applications, the current existing applications. So when I talk about technology, what comes into your mind? Tell me. See, if you look at all the applications, these applications need some kind of environment. Okay, what are the environment? It can be an operating system. It can be a database. It can be a web server, that's good. It can be an application server. It can be a configuration management tool. It can be a deployment tool. It can be a what is that? Remote desktop. So when we talk about technology architecture, the beauty of TOGAF is, what TOGAF does is able to abstract from the actual product. See, before, just I saw a question from Mega before. See, before what was happening is, like any company, they're just going to procure a product. Then they're going to define what the business wants, or business thinks this product is very good. They go to a seminar, they just buy the product. The product is like a tip of an iceberg. It might be having 5% of the capability, what the business wants. But again, 95% they need to customize it, or the vendor is going to customize based on the user requirement. So when you come from the architecture perspective, we define, for me, I want to have the target architecture. This is the target I want to achieve. To achieve this target, let us look at what is a business problem. Oh, this is the current business problem. They cannot able to monitor the student working remotely, or studying remotely, or taking the exam remotely. Okay, Let us look what is the requirements for that. So what is the regulatory requirement? It's not the question I just define having eye tracking. No. What kind of eye tracking? How to monitor him? So what kind of data I need to capture? For to give example, I may be compliant with some university or some kind of standard bodies in US or UK. So then what are their expectation? What kind of data I need to capture? So how many photos of the student I need to take? So what kind of IDs I need to take? So that's all we go to define the business architecture. That's where we got the reference architecture to refer back. Then we come to the application. Hey, what kind of applications are there? Again, example, eye tracking, they can be an application. Or there can be like one application to monitor the student real time to capture the screen. So these are some of the applications what we identify. Then we define, hey, what kind of data is generated? Or we can able to identify, okay, what kind of data it can generate. It can either one. Application can come first, technology can come, data can come first. Then we identify what kind of technology stack is needed to realize this application or data, ultimately the business requirement. Okay, guys. So today what we discussed is, we discussed very important thing. I showed you the concept of what is, just give me another 4 minutes. I should have my time. I'm sorry for it. So today what we discussed is, we discussed mainly about, see the whole TOGAF is based on this ISO IEEE 42010. This is a standard, it's an international standard. This is done for the software industry. So based on this model, TOGAF has customized a lot of its requirements. So based on these requirements only, all your B, C, D phase all is structured in that way. So based on that one, in an application system of systems, so set the system of systems, we want to deal with the system of systems. System of systems need to work coherently in a seamless way. To work seamlessly, what you need to do is, you must capture the information from the business perspective. Once we capture the information from the business perspective, so what we do is, then we can able to identify for the business problem or business concern, what kind of application is needed. So again, for that application, what kind of data is going to generate, and to manage this, what kind of technology stack we are going to need.